He was a very creative guy. He wanted to draw more customers to his pharmacy, but he was stuck because he was in a very small town. And when he saw an advertisement in a newspaper from another city nearby, offering courses on hypnotism. And Coué, who was always trying to learn, he hesitated to go to this course, but eventually he closed down his pharmacy for 2 weeks, and he went to a course by a guy called Hippolyte, who was living in Nancy, one of the cities in northern France. So Coué learned about hypnotism. He was very interested, and then he came back. He went back to his pharmacy. He opened again and said, "How can I use it on my business?" He came up with this idea of positive thinking that has been distorted today in the 21st century, but Coué was very practical. He ran experiments, and when someone came to the pharmacy because they had a headache or they had back pain, he would give them a herbal preparation. This is what people used to take in the 19th century. They took herbal preparations, and he told them a story of how they're going to become better, they're going to heal. He told, you take this preparation, you take it once a day, for 2 weeks you will be fine, it's going to be perfect, it's going to help you. And he told them this positive story to help them recover by taking the right medication. And he ran statistics for almost 10 years, and he proved that this kind of positive thinking works because it reinforces right behavior. And what Coué was trying to do is to get people recovered from different sickness, but the whole idea of his suggestion, his positive thinking, was to help people do the right things, not to be completely unrealistic that you can do anything and you can become successful like you hear today, just be positive and it will be fine. This is completely stupid. If you do it like this, you might destroy your life because you will become so ridiculously unrealistic that you will not even know that you are going in the wrong direction. Coué, who became later very famous because he made such a fortune in his pharmacy, because people used to go to Coué's pharmacy from 100 kilometers because he was so good, such a good salesman, such a good talker, by giving this suggestion to people. But in the end, he wanted people to take the medication. He didn't just tell them, just believe in it and it will happen. This is not the way to do it. So the right way to use positive thinking to avoid disruptions is to mix the ideas, the suggestion, the optimism, to mix it with the right kind of action. If you don't do that, you will crash against the wall.
Oh, yeah. You put it very well. Now, our time is starting to wind down here. You have, how many other books have you written?
This is number 10. So I've written already 10 books.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of your previous ones if you want to bring them all up. And what are they about?
Well, the previous one is called Sequentiality, the power of doing the things in the right sequence, with the right sequence of steps. And what I've done in this previous book is to show that there is too much emphasis on emotions today. People get caught up in these fantastic stories of doing things in 3 hours and in 3 days. This is complete nonsense. What is really the key to doing things correctly is to figure out the right sequence of carrying out the task you want to do. So I've gone through hundreds of stories and presented things, people who were not very positive, they were not very spectacular, not very educated, but still they found a way to make large fortunes and become super successful because they have a lot of common sense and they figure out the right sequence. So very low-key, modest individuals, they became super wealthy, while other people who were geniuses, they destroyed their life because they thought they could do anything. And let me just give you quickly one of the stories. It's about a poet and artist. His name was Rossetti, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, in the 19th century, who was a great painter. He made very fantastic creative paintings, but the problem with this guy is that he was very sensitive. He got a few bad reviews in newspapers, and he started to become depressed. He started to drink, and at a certain point, he became completely paranoid. He wanted to stay home the whole day, and he died very, very early. He died in his early 50s because he got this depression, this anxiety, and this is exactly what you don't need to do. Rossetti could have been very, very successful if he could have really figured out how to improve the marketing, because his problem was marketing, but he was a genius. And this happens very often, that people get too emotional. They blame themselves, they become depressed, they become anxious. But what you have to do is to be objective and to focus on reality and say, what are the steps I need to take to improve my marketing, to improve my sales, to improve my relationships, get practical, get to the point. And this is the whole point of this book, Sequentiality.
Interesting. How big a read are your books? I mean, is it something they can read in a weekend, or is it something that it's a longer read?
I think you can read them. If you read quickly, you can read in 3 hours, 3.5 hours. The stories are very short, because I try to cut off all the boring parts, because I just want to really make a point. So, for instance, one of the stories in the previous book is about Palladio, who used to build these fantastic, beautiful houses. Actually, all the architecture of the American public buildings, like you have in Washington, these white buildings that they look like ancient buildings, they are copied from Palladio. And Palladio was a very modest worker. He was living in the 16th century, and he became super wealthy because he figured out the right steps. And the problem with Palladio is that people wanted to have very beautiful buildings, very beautiful houses, but didn't want to pay for them because they were too expensive. If you use marble, if you use these high columns, nobody wants to spend €1 million to buy a summer cottage. But Palladio figured out that he could produce these kind of houses by using bricks and to put some plaster of them, and then he produced these amazing buildings that they look like antique, they look like Roman buildings, ancient Roman, ancient Greeks, and he made a fortune. And all the American revolutionists like Jefferson, they liked Palladio, and they wanted to build the whole Washington looking like Palladio's houses. And Palladio, the only thing he did was to find the right sequence of steps. He found a way to produce these fantastic houses at a very low cost. And he sold many, many houses in the 16th century. If you go to Venice, around Venice, you see fantastic houses built by Palladio. 500 years ago, they're still standing, and they still look beautiful. And this is the kind of philosophy you need in life, to be practical, to focus on the steps, and don't go crazy about motivation, emotion, positive thinking, because it will not add one iota of success to your life.
No, it'll actually probably take away from your success, as far as I can see.
Yes, this is what I've been doing 14 years. You have to go through the details. You have to go through the stories. Human beings, we learn through stories. We learn through example. Don't believe theories from people that are not realistic. They sound very nice when you listen to them for a few minutes, but get into the details. This is why I think you have to really look into history. Do not reinvent the wheel. People spend today too much time going through problems or going through disruptions that could be easily avoided if you look into history and you see how people solve problems that are very similar.
So very interesting. Now, we only got a couple minutes left. You want to list your other books off? And where can they find, John, where can they find your books at?
Yeah, I'm very, very easy to find. If you type my name, John Vespasian, on Google, even if you misspell it, it doesn't matter because Google will correct you. If you just type John Vespasian, you will find my blogs. There are hundreds of free articles, my newsletter. The books are available on different outlets. If you just type, also in Amazon, of course, if you just type John Vespasian on Google, you will find all my stuff in 1 second.
Oh, wow. You know, another thing, too, if you want to email me the next day or two, the link to, I will, if you have a website, I'll put it up on our website. and keep it up for a week or two for people also can find you. Because, besides being live right now, after the show's over, it goes into replay like on iTunes, iHeart, and all the major apps. And I get a huge, I should say, listenership, listening to the replays at their, leisure.
Okay, I will do that. Many thanks.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump out of here. Again, go ahead and tell everybody your latest book. And I want to also thank you for coming on, because now you got my mind thinking. And I'm sure if you got my mind thinking, there's a lot of people out there, that learned a lot tonight.
Yes, the title of the latest book is Undisrupted, How Highly Effective People Deal with Disruptions. And the message is that you should be realistic. You look at people who solve the same problems you're trying to solve in your health, in your career, in your finances, and you will find the answers without having to depress yourself, without having to go anxious, without having to go stressed. Get practical. Don't get too emotional.
Well, thank you, John. And out of curiosity, what is the weather like? Are you seeing, up on our news, we keep hearing about earth changes, climate changes going on. What is the weather where you're at like right now?
The weather is fantastic. We're having very warm days today. So I have nothing against this weather, and I hope it continues for a few months.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you for coming on Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Many thanks, Gary.
Okay, you take care. So, what can I say? I mean, a lot of things he said does make logical sense. And you should check out his books because, a lot of people, they get distracted. They start a business and they get distracted one way or another. Maybe it's greed. Maybe it's personal problems. Maybe they bit off more than they could chew, or they expanded too much and they get greedy. I don't know. Maybe this book will give you some ideas of not to make those type of mistakes. Coming up in May on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark, we got some great guests coming on. We have Bruce Maccabee, Dr. Bruce Maccabee coming on the first. We have a whole bunch of people in the UFO field scheduled in all the month of May. For everything from UFOs to abductions to what have you. So if you're really into UFOs, aliens and stuff like that, well, May is the month you want to tune in on Night Dreams Talk Radio. We're talking guests that'll knock your socks off. Now, besides that, I even actually have a couple different talk show hosts that's coming on to talk about how they got into broadcasting. And then we got Jason Offit is coming on May 6th, talking about his book about monsters. And we just got a great month. I mean, I can say Neil Rosenbeck will be back on May 16th, talking about his abductions with aliens. On the 14th of May, we got Joe Taylor. Now, he works for various museums. He goes out and, dinosaur bones and puts them back together and repairs them. He goes out and has gone worldwide and recovered different dinosaur bones. I didn't even know in Texas at one point there were camels in Texas, but there was an area in Texas, I guess, not far underground, there was a whole bunch of remains of camels. Tells you that our continents have not always been divided. So anyway, I'm going to jump out of here. Again, on tomorrow, you want to catch my good friend show, James Kirschbaum, and he's going to have a great guest on who actually had a TV show on ghost hunting, radio shows, and all that stuff. He's on tomorrow between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock or 7 to 8 Eastern time. Make sure you tune in to James' show because he's a great host. He's really sincere on doing his show, and it shows. Anyway, I'm going to jump out of here. I'll be back on Monday. I want everybody to have a great weekend. Stay out of trouble. And by the way, you want to catch Ronald Farham's show on Sunday, go to the website, www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Click on weekends. It'll give you, what weekends he's on. He's on every other weekend. You might also want to go onto the website because I do break down, I think, the first month of guests on Night Dreams Talk Radio.